For all the latest community news and events.
103.2 Preston FM.
Your community, your radio.
Well, this week Preston FM has been pleased to support and be associated with Dementia Awareness Week and to support the many agencies working with people suffering from dementia. The Alzheimer's Dementia Awareness Week, Don't Bottle It Up, says that if you're worried that you or someone close to you may have dementia, it can be difficult to talk about. You may feel scared, confused, even ashamed. You may also be hoping that the problem will go away so you don't have to deal with it. All this week, Alzheimer's Society are running a National Dementia Helpline Advice session. If you would like to contact, the telephone number is 0300 222 1122. Now, everyone has a relationship with their environment. Each day we move about in space and time, relating to people, objects and places of meaning. Much of how we think about ourselves is reflected in our environment. Environments of our daily life give us resources for presenting ourselves to the world around us. And it's the same for people with dementia. Even if their perception of time and space has changed, they live in a world where relationships, objects and situations matter. People with dementia may not be able to speak about the meaning environments have, but a sense of meaning and importance remains in their lives. And to talk to me about this, I welcome into the studio Professor Karim Hadjri from the School of Architecture and Environment at UCLan. So a very good morning to you.
Good morning, thank you.
Lovely to welcome you to Chat City, and can I thank you for coming in this morning. The experience of people with dementia, do you think it tends to be overlooked when it comes to the design of residential and respite facilities?
Partly, yes. Maybe due to the lack of information available to support, for example, care homes, the design of care homes and nursing homes, where these people spend most of their time in there. So currently, I think there is a good practice available, particularly from the University of Stirling, from the Dementia Services Development Centre. We have been working with them for some years now, and they have a very robust guidelines that can be used by any care homes in order to design accordingly and minimize the effect of a badly designed physical environment.
And what would it mean then to say that something was design dementia friendly?
Yeah, well, dementia friendly is quite broad, So we could be talking, for example, about the interior spaces. But we could talk about the interior design. We could be talking about the architectural design, the layouts, and so on. So the most important thing is the general character of the setting, the physical setting. That is, you don't want them to be looking institutional. You want them to be looking more residential, so that they are familiar, to people with dementia. You want the spatial organization of the house or the care home to be legible in terms of layout, corridors, and so on. Because if you do too much symmetry, it confuses the person with dementia, and therefore they will get lost and then gets frustrated and angry. And then there is the designs of specific places, like for example the dining room, the kitchens, the lounges, the bedrooms, and the bathrooms. They all have specific things that needs to be adapted so that a person with dementia will understand what that space is for.
And is this quite a new area of development and research within the universities?
Yes, yeah, it is. As I said, it has been led primarily by the University of Stirling in the United Kingdom. Some work has been done in the United States and in Canada, but I would say about 14 years ago than when it started becoming much more important, and it has been growing here. And as you can see, there is the dementia strategy, the UK one. There is the Prime Minister Challenge on Dementia, which finally they are becoming aware of its importance. But from UCLan's perspective, my perspective and my teams, we are looking at the dementia-friendly environment because we are built environment professionals. So we are not the medical, we don't look at the medical aspect, but we look at the physical environment, how this can alleviate the symptoms of this or the problems caused by wandering, for example, or getting lost or getting frustrated and so on.
Yes, someone I was interviewing yesterday was telling us about the fact even down to the carpets and to the wallpaper that you could have in an establishment, that if in fact you have a wallpaper or a carpet that is quite a patterned wallpaper carpet, that can lead to great confusion. So again, this then transpires also, as you're saying, to the layout of the buildings and the way that someone can then find themselves going around the building. So what are the principles then for creating a dementia-friendly environment?
Well, as I said, there are good guidelines available at the moment from the DSDC, Dementia Services Development Center in West Sterling. They are available in some care homes and nursing homes. They can approach them for an audit. As a result of the audit, they can get a certification, gold standard certification, which will be excellent for them because it shows that there are best practice available at the moment. I think what you mentioned about the carpets is, yes, it's a very simple thing that can be done really without much trouble, which you don't want to have patterns in them because they may be perceived as holes or as steps, which actually they are not. And also reflections. If you have a floor that is very shiny, it gives the impression that it is water, and therefore people will not a person with dementia will not step on it, will avoid it. The same thing indoors. The signage can be also used adequately in order for them to find their way around. For example, some homes have used memory boxes, so that the person can identify his or her room. Others use numbers that are meaningful to that person from their past experience, a past address or an address name, and so on. So there are features that you could use, including a color scheme that can be very efficient for them to understand what is that space that they are approaching.
So whilst the focus, and we're discussing care homes, maybe hospitals, etc., there's quite some important information here for within people's own homes or for relatives who are looking after somebody suffering from dementia. I mean, I take it then there's quite lots of things that people at home could do to actually make their environment of the sufferer, but also for the person looking after the sufferer, could make life easier within the home.
Yes, indeed. I think simple things like the toilets, for example, where the taps have to be the what we call the old-fashioned ones. You don't want anyone that is the automatic ones because they will not understand them. Things like the toilet seat needs to have a color contrast so that they know which one is the seating part, which one is the actual toilet. That's very important. Plus the accessibility, issues, basic ones, which is, for example, enough space for a wheelchair or for a person to sit in that bedroom with grab bars and so on, which are necessary in any case for an older person. But a person with dementia is not necessarily an old person. Some are quite young, so it is not really an age-related disease. And so therefore things like that, and the furniture can be adapted as well to be something that is easy to use, not slippery, not dangerous, and the same with the carpet. So that basic things that can be used, being color codes, color schemes, or signage that can help them understand the environment where they are.
And is there any measure of feedback from a more environmentally friendly building or somewhere that somebody's living, suffering from dementia? Have we got feedback that says that this does actually make a difference to their life?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, because there are things that we know they work, but they may not work for everyone because it's a very personal thing, and that's why we are looking at the person-centered approaches, including care. So every person reacts differently. Some have a mix of impairments. They don't just have dementia, they may have also other sensory, like visual impairments. So even if you use for that person a color scheme, it may not work because they will not see those colors as we would expect them to. So there are variations, and therefore also looking at one with a mild dementia to moderate to severe, there is a dramatic change in their demands and the way also that the physical environment should respond to that. So I think you have to, we know what works, but much more research is needed in order to understand when it is more complicated, where other impairments come into play. be it accessibility, mobility, or visual impairments and so on, or other cognitive impairments that can be also very, very difficult to understand.
How does the research go forward? Is it actually research that's done within the care homes? Is it research with individuals suffering from Alzheimer's?
Yes, correct. I mean, we have research taking place into care settings. For example, there is a PhD doctorate that just finished, which looked at wayfinding success with people with dementia of different stages and so on. So basically, the task was to give them a specific destination to go to their room, for example, from one point, and to see how fast they do it, which clues they use in order to get there, what aspects of the physical environment in those corridors, in those spaces confuses them, make them lose their bearings, so that we record them. It could be a noise or it could be an actual physical thing. So this have been recorded, and then interviews were taking place also with them as they were moving, and there were several trials. I mean, like one day later and 1 week later, to test the short-term memory and long-term memory, and to see whether this have an impact on their way capability. So you have to involve them as partners, not as objects. You have to explain to them there is issues with ethical approvals and so on, which obviously we follow with the NHS and so on. So they have to be observed in situ. They have to be observed in their own environments where they are familiar to it. But we found out that some of them actually don't just use the physical environment to orient themselves. They use also sensory, like noises and smell, to make them remember where they are going to. So they use them as landmarks in a way, and quite successfully, actually.
I should have done an interview yesterday, and sadly I couldn't get hold of the person on the phone. And the interview was around the importance of music on people suffering from dementia, and music with memory. So it's music that would have a personal meaning to that person. And sadly, I couldn't contact the person on the phone. But in a way, it's very similar then to what we're saying about the environment, that the environment then does become a very personal specification to the individual to help them with their life.
Yes, I think sensory stimulation is very important. And I know that in the United States, and maybe in the UK in some places, they have used also art therapy as a way forward, and where they take the people with dementia for tours to museums and so on, and let them look and react to that. And some care homes actually, they have murals and artwork being displayed to some, I say, different and mixed reactions. So it depends. I think some could be overwhelming. I think the advice is that you have to be careful with sensory overstimulation. You want to just about the right stimulation, be it musical or visual, because they tend to get upset quite quickly. So I think it has to be done in moderation. It has to be tested over a period of time. And as I said, different people will react differently to this sensory stimulation.
Right. And you mentioned you're not medically qualified, but how is the research received by the medical services, by the NHS, etc.? Is it a kind of cooperation between the two at looking at a way forward?
Yes. I mean, we collaborate with the Alzheimer Society and other care homes and hospitals, the NIH, the hospital, teaching hospitals here and elsewhere. And they are partners, and sometimes we have medical doctors with us, we have psychologists, we have care professionals, we have occupational therapists who understand mobility and so on issues and adaptability, because some people will have to adapt their homes, because the idea in the long term is that we age in place. We stay at home even if we have dementia or we have mobility issues. But in order to enable that, you need to adapt the house accordingly. And so there are programs and grants and so on that can allow you to change that environment to make it much more enabling for these people. So obviously we work on a multidisciplinary approach. As I say, it's not we're not just looking at the medical issues. We don't look at what causes it, but we will look at it how we can even maybe reduce its development by a more helpful, supportive environment, because it can work, like you said, these therapies, art therapies or music therapy, this stimulation can somehow will potentially slow down the disease, so which is quite good for everyone, really.
Right. And the challenges for the future of research?
Yeah, I think the challenges is that we need to do more research on on other aspect of dementia-friendly environments. Some of my colleagues have done it outdoors for a person with dementia walking in the neighborhood without getting lost and having problems. So we need to look at how we can improve the environment across the board, be it outdoors, our cities, our towns, our shopping malls, our airports, our train stations, everything, but also at the home, how we can make the home used for the life course, where we stay, where we will not need to go to care homes, maybe nursing homes at a very late stage. So if we can, have a broader response, and I think that's what we should be going forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, can I thank you for coming in? That's been most fascinating. When we were planning this week to support Dementia Awareness Week, I must admit, I just did not imagine we'd be talking about the environment, about architecture, etc. And that's been fascinating. So can I thank you for coming in?
No, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as we have. Why not join our Chat City family and give us a tweet at Chat City PFM.